why when you look at that. All right. Haason Reddick's people are trying to set the market. And I told you yesterday, they've thrown out the number that they're looking for $26 million annually. My opinion, I don't have a problem with them asking for that. Are they going to get that? No. But you start high. It's negotiations, right? You're going to start high. So here are the 5 landing spots that potentially you could see Haason Reddick. And I think there's probably 2 more. Eagles will do 20 to 22. Damn, Chris, I'm not seeing that. I'm just not seeing that. I'm not there with that. $22 million for Haason Reddick. Man, maybe I just sound like I'm old man, get off my lawn shit because the cap's up 255. I mean, is that the market value for a guy that can't do everything for you? Are you going to pay $22 million for a guy who can't do everything for you in Haason Reddick? I just don't believe I'm spending that kind of money when I could cut that money in half and get multiple players because I have multiple issues in my defense. Secondary linebacker depth. I have to get more. You see, do we not agree? The Eagles have a volume problem on defense. You have a volume problem of lack of talent. I don't care how he's full of shit. He is not telling the truth. There is a volume issue of talent on that side of the ball. Are you talented on offense? Absolutely. You don't really have a talent issue on the offensive side, but you have a talent issue there. I'm not even talking about Pro Bowler. I'm just talking about functional, good players. There's 2 dudes on that side of the ball. 2 dudes that you would keep on that side of the ball. Okay? Who replaces Reddick's sack value? What's on the market right now? Brian, it's a great call. But here, Brian, if my defense got better in playing the run, and my defense got better in pass rushing as a unit, and I didn't pay Reddick the $20 million, but I got better and I paid a guy 10, would you think that was a win? You know, I hear people like Bill and some of these other guys talking about why get rid of your best players. Well, if you're not getting any value out of it and your best players, I think some of the comments are, I don't see getting rid of a guy like A.J. Brown. Well, I saw Pittsburgh, and I've seen other teams win with lesser talented wide receivers and go further into playoffs, and their quarterbacks do more with lesser talented wideouts. Why do you have to spend $25 million? What's the point of that? You know what that is? You don't believe in Hurts. If you have a conversation, if you have a conversation in a building and you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you're Duke Tobin or you're Mike Brown and you can't live without Jamar Chase, and you pay Joe Burrow $55 million, well, then you don't have the right guy at quarterback. If you can't move off of a wideout, your offense doesn't go through your wide receiver. It goes through your quarterback. I mean, I don't want to hear that if you get rid of somebody other than the quarterback, what's the point of paying them? I don't see the value in that. Again, you got to remember, this is about building rosters, not about players' resumes. And I think we fall into that too much when it comes to looking at these rosters. Don't forget, Craig Carton's going to join us at 4:30. Craig was one of the first guys to throw some shade out there on the Eagle locker room. A lot of the stuff that D Gunn and everybody have been reporting, a lot of it has starting to circumvent itself here a little bit. And we'll get his take on it. That'll be at the bottom of the hour here in a second. So we'll look forward to talking with him. You see, I'm not in paying big time wideouts or edge rushers. I'm into paying for a healthy roster and balancing of my roster, balancing of my cap. Here's some of the landing spots. There's going to be an exodus in Cleveland. They're going to lose a ton of guys in their front seven. The Browns are going to lose a lot of dudes in that front seven this offseason here. And does Reddick fit into a place? Could Jim Schwartz use him in a position where you have him on the other side of Myles Garrett? I mean, does that make sense? Because remember something. The Browns don't have a first-round pick. Okay? They don't have a first-round selection. So you put him on the other side of Myles Garrett. Does that make that defense look a tad bit more formidable? Myles Garrett and Haason Reddick playing ball together in Cleveland. You're in the AFC. You've got to get home with Lamar. You've got to get home with Mahomes, Allen, all these players, Trevor Lawrence, CJ Stroud. You'd have a pretty damn formidable pass rush. The question would be, would you pay? See, Cleveland, they're going to have some money too. They're going to have some money. I mean, Flexing goes, the Browns are going to be a force if they can make that happen. I could see the Browns, plus the relationship that Andrew Berry has with Howie, Schwartz, all them guys. Does that make sense? Communications would be open. There's no animosity with Cleveland and Philly. Sounds like a place where he could sit and land. That could be a spot for him because the Browns don't have a first-round pick. The second team that I could see them having an opportunity at would be the Falcons. The Falcons need defense. They've done a really nice job, the Falcons, at building up their offense. I think Bijan Robinson's a good football player, and I think he was a real good draft pick for them. The kid they got from Florida the year previous, I think is good. They got to get a quarterback down there. Is that a place Justin Fields lands? That makes more sense for me. That Fields lands in Atlanta, young coach. And Raheem's right. Raheem doesn't get that job if you had better quarterback play. If there were better, they're telling you, they're moving off of Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder's not the guy. Because if they got better quarterback play, Raheem doesn't get that job, Raheem Morris. So is that where Justin Fields goes? Fields started his career. Am I right when I say this? Xander, maybe you guys, am I right when I say that Justin Fields started his college career at Georgia before he transferred to Ohio State? Does that sound right? I thought that he started his career at Georgia and then transferred to Ohio State. And for the record, I believe that's how Burrow had to go to LSU, was because of that. So he gets a chance to go back to Atlanta. That makes more sense to me. So if you had Justin Fields there, the kid Pitts, Bijan Robinson, and all of a sudden you're able to attract Haason Reddick in a trade and acquire Haason Reddick in a trade, you know, the Atlanta Falcons could win that division. And would Justin Fields be the best quarterback in that division, the NFC South? Would he be better than Baker if he goes down to Atlanta? All of a sudden, Atlanta looks pretty good if you get Reddick. I'll tell you this, man. Reddick's going to make a team better. It's going to make a team better. It's going to be the price tag. This comes down to price tag. And once again, guys, would you not agree that if Howie spent money on defense, this is a non-question. This is a non-discussion. But because the Eagles are cheap defensively, this is a conversation. When people, again, we brought this up the last 3 days about Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen is a pipe dream. Patrick Queen is going to cost you $20 million. Okay? They're going to cost you $20 million. How he's not spending $20 million of his salary cap on one dude. You know, if he does that, he would have rolled the dice. And I will tell you, holy shit, you talk about a course change. I mean, that's an earthquake change. If they do shit like, if they sign Queen, they had a clear epiphany about the linebacker position if they get Patrick Queen. What is sad about the NFL is that none of the top receivers throughout history, besides Rice, has won a Super Bowl. Just a bunch of big number guys. It's correct. That's why I don't spend that money there. Because if you have the quarterback, you don't need a big-time wideout. And let's not forget something, too. Death row. Montana's first Super Bowl, he had no receivers. They had the quarterback. Rice just added to Montana's greatness. It was Montana. It wasn't Rice. As great as Rice was, it was Montana. Because you had the quarterback. You had the guy that could win ball games. Montana in his four Super Bowl wins never threw a pick and had 14 touchdown passes. He never threw an interception in any one of the 4 Super Bowls, and he beat Elway and Marino in those Super Bowls. Not only beat him, but crushed him. I mean, guy was sensational. Here's another place. How about Doug Peterson making a play for Haason Reddick? So far, landing spots for Reddick. Browns, Falcons. How about the Jags? Put him on the other side of the kid he drafted from Utah, plus the kid Walker. They need to get home. Okay? Hey, Mr. International. And of course, it slipped my mind. Haason Reddick and Josh Allen. How many sacks did Allen have last year? Like, what was it, 17, 18? Jags already have a good defense. You imagine Josh Allen and Haason Reddick rushing the passer. Okay? Allen had 17 sacks. Reddick had 12. So you got 30 between the two of them. And you want to talk about getting better immediately? You put Haason Reddick on the Jaguars, and you're talking about a formidable front. And you're talking about a very versatile front. And Reddick can eat in that. He doesn't have to drop in coverage because Allen will do that. Okay? You just wind him up and let him run into quarterbacks. So the Jags sound to me like a good spot. So landing spots for Reddick, Browns, Falcons, Jags. How about the Vikings? They're going to lose Hunter. Hunter's probably going to go on the open market because he's valued at $21 million. I do not believe the Minnesota Vikings for whatever reason. Now, to me, if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, I mean, I would tag Hunter and I would sign Reddick. And you put Reddick and Hunter together, that to me makes sense. Last year, I think Daniel Hunter, he was another guy that had almost like 19 sacks. He's another guy. There's a place there, again, where you put him on the other side of a true pass rusher. Yeah, you know, Rico, what I'll do is I'll give you my best landing spot for him. And again, you got to remember, the Eagles are going to want some equity back, obviously, if he finds a home somewhere else. The Jaguars, the Browns don't have a lot of draft picks. Okay? They don't have a lot of draft picks because of the Deshaun Watson deal. They sent them all to the Texans. I think the Texans is a great landing spot on the other side of Will Anderson. And they've got $70 million in cap space. Okay? And they're an up-and-coming football team. D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, the general manager, in my opinion, you're starting to look at a football team that's starting to put something together down in Houston. That looks like also a potential spot. Could be down there in Texas. I like him on the other side of someone. I think that was one of the reasons why he had a great year last year, was because Brandon Graham had a double-digit sack year. And when you have a guy on the other side, plus Sweat had a double-digit sack year. And when you got multiple guys that are playing on the edge for you, having double-digit sacks, I think that benefited his play. There's no question, he was I would make this point to you. As great as Hurts played, he was your postseason MVP in your Super Bowl run year. Would you not agree? Divisional game, he was exceptional. The NFC Championship game, he changed the complex of the game. Even in the Super Bowl, I thought he was really good. He was outstanding in the postseason. Outstanding in the postseason. I thought he was great. How about Reddick and TJ Watt in Pittsburgh? I don't think Pittsburgh is going to spend that kind of money on an edge rusher outside like that. I think they're looking more towards interior defensive line, and that's why there's been an emphasis on potentially trying to get Fletcher Cox in the building. See, Fletcher Cox makes sense to me because I think that's something that Mike Tomlin, they got to do a better job of stopping the run in Pittsburgh. Ravens, Terrell Suggs, they've always been good at the edge. They're losing some players in free agency. I mean, would they spend $20 million, though, on a guy? Would they spend $20 million on him? They've got some holes, man. They figured it out. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Patrick Queen, though. To me, if I'm going to spend money, I'm going to keep Queen in the building and have him play alongside of Roquan Smith. So I think I would rather spend my money on Patrick Queen and restructure a contract to try to keep him in the building than I would to try to bring in Haason Reddick. Because to me, Patrick Queen is 24 years old. I don't think the Ravens want to let him go. So I wouldn't be in a hurry to put him on the open market. That's coming up in 2 weeks. So they're going to have to make a decision. Would they tag him? I mean, that's a pretty big tag number in today's NFL for a linebacker. Would you tag Patrick Queen? Probably not, because you don't get the negotiation and the ability to be able to negotiate down a lower base salary, because then you can front end it. Like what the Eagles did with Hurts was brilliant. They front ended the contract. They gave him the bag of money. They lowered his base so that the cap hits wouldn't be detrimental. And that's why really Jalen is a non-factor in his salary. He in theory is a non-factor when it comes to his base. So he won't be actually a factor probably for another 3 years. And that was one of the brilliant things that Roseman did. No question about it. I mean, you look at Daniel Jones's numbers. His numbers are insane for the Giants. And once again, I heard Barkley saying at the Combines that the Giants are in contact with him and they would like to have him still be a New York Giant. But they want Barkley to be a Giant at their price. And here's my problem with Barkley, though. I don't think Saquon Barkley lived up to his number 2 overall pick. When I look at Barkley's career, I think Saquon Barkley has been a really good ball player, but the number 2 overall pick, you want me to pay $10 million for a back, albeit didn't have a really good O-line last year, but you want me to give you $8 million, $9 million for a guy who didn't gain 1,000 yards? What are we talking here? And I never really thought he ever lived up to that number 2 overall. And so when they're talking about Barkley, being a big commodity on the open market, Who's going to pay that guy who's been often injured, not lived up to the number 2 billing and the number 2 draft pick? Who's going to pay that? I'd rather get a lesser guy and fill a bigger need. It just, I don't. Okay. Yeah, Barb. I mean, I think the poster of the movie for Saquon Barkley, I think it's been bigger than it was the movie. And I think it's like you said, I think there's been a little bit of like over promotion on Barkley. He's not as good as you think he is. Now, is he the best player offensively on the Giants? Yes. But what does that say? Your running back, where in today's NFL, a traditional 20 carry guy is no longer part of the game? I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't see how the Giants bring him back. And personally, maybe they do bring him back, but once he gets out in the open market and he becomes a free agent, I think guys like him and Josh Jacobs and maybe even DeAndre Swift, I think these guys are going to get an eyeful here on what kind of market value they don't have. Because I don't believe that there's a lot of teams. Now, what team out there? Would the Bills pay Barkley $8 million? They got a decent back in that kid Bush. I think that guy's going to be a bit of a budding star in Buffalo. Where would you go where you think Baltimore? Again, you talk about Haason going to Baltimore. Do they need more of a back in that position in Baltimore? Or do they look over at that and say, hey, I don't see Saquon Barkley. Here's the last landing spot that I have. This is going to be weird. Going back to Carolina, I know it's a song, but going back to Carolina, you're going to lose Brian Burns. Or is Carolina going to bring him back and franchise tag him? He's a $21 million player. So are you going to have 2 edge pass rushers at $20 million? Or do you bring Reddick back and pay him $20 million? Because I think Burns is going to command $26, $27 million in the open market. He's 25 years old, and he's one of the top flight prospects for free agency, in my opinion. Now, I would love to have Burns take the place. If I was going to spend a lot of money, it wouldn't be on Patrick Queen. It would be on Brian Burns to try to get him to replace Brandon Graham. Graham, Sweat, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis, you'd have the best front 4 in the NFL. If you put those 4 together, okay, Josh Sweat, Brian Burns, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and you had those 4 guys as your front 4, that'd be pretty formidable. Okay? That'd be pretty formidable. Carolina can't keep him. Why? Because of the move they made last year when it came to dealing that pick for Bryce Young. They need draft picks. So that's why they're moving off of Brian Burns. They're going to want to get draft choices. They would want, again, opportunities on being able, but again, he's a free agent. Do you tag him? Once he becomes a free agent, I don't know what Carolina, is Carolina going to tag him? Are they going to tag him? He's a great player. He's just on a shitty team. He's just on a terrible football team right now. So Carolina's got a lot of holes to fill, brand new coach, and a very temperamental owner. And you go down there right now and you're the owner, okay? End of the line here. You got to sit here and you got to determine whether or not you understand that you've got a lot of work to do here. So the spots. the Browns, the Falcons, the Jags, the Vikings, and Carolina. Let me tell Craig he can log on now. How many people believe, though? See here. I just texted him. Okay, thanks, Xander. Good, okay. Good. I still don't know what they're going to do. Either bring him back, try to restructure a contract. I don't believe they're going to offer him the money that he's looking for. I just don't. I don't believe that. I think this is one of the critical decisions they have to make in the next 2 weeks to determine that defense right now and what they have to do, because they got a ton of holes and they've got to figure that one out, because that is going to be able – they got a lot of money. Do you spend money at the edge? Do you spend money at the linebacker? I don't believe they're going to – a corner? I don't believe they're going to do that at the safety position. I just don't believe they're going to do that. So, a lot of money they have to be able to spread around, but there's a lot of holes. Vic Fangio, his priority has got to be – one of the things that Dave Wannstedt said when we were talking about Fangio, and even when Tom Thayer was on with us, they were making the comments that we were talking, and he said that, look, it's not about having great players on the team. It's about having balance at every level. You can't just have a great D-line, suspect linebackers, and also corners and safeties that can't cover. He's going to want to be able to try to rebuild the football. You don't have to rebuild your football team with a bunch of A guys. You can rebuild your team with a bunch of B and C guys working as a single unit. We're efforting our friend Craig Carton. I know I told you guys that he'd be on with us here at 4:30 Eastern, so hopefully we're able to run him down here and get him aboard here with us in a couple minutes here. So appreciate, Devin, we're working on that right now. Hopefully we're able to get him on here. So again, I would say that Reddick has a market. This is going to come down to price tag. And what do the Eagles want in return? What would you get in return for him? What'll be acceptable? Is it more about getting him off the books? Or is it more about getting a draft pick in return? What's the return you're looking for? Third rounder? You're not getting a 1. You're not getting a 1. Denny's right. Denny's right. And when it comes to getting value and getting value back in picks, how he's good at that. Absolutely. He is. Could the Eagles go after Chris Jones? That's a $30 million price tag, Howard. You know, right now, you're talking about a guy who's going to be in the market for around between $28 and $32 million when it comes to that. So they're not spending that kind of money for a defensive tackle that's 29 years old. Okay? Between 28 and $32 million is what Chris Jones is going to command. And do I think he's worth it? I don't think he's worth it on a 4-year contract, but I think he's worth it when it comes to him being there for I'd give him a 3-year contract. But again, that's a ton of money, man. You've got to go to the teams that have the ton of money, like Chicago. Chicago's got a ton of cash. Jason, a 2 and a 3 for Reddick, I don't believe you get that for him. I do not believe you would get that. I think that's a little too high. A 2 and a 3. Okay? Trade Reddick, how much cap does that? I think that clears around $13 million. If they were able to clear that, it would give them a ton of money. And you could pay for a guy like Burns or Queen. But again, this comes down to how the Eagles act. All right? Hey, Xander, I'm gonna take a timeout. I'm gonna try to run down Craig here and see if we can find him. So I'm gonna take a timeout here and let's see if we can try to run down our friend here. And we're efforting our friend. Hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.